We're going to have a look at Bram's kettlebell swing, and luckily for me we've got Claire in the background, so I can show you a little bit of a comparison as to the two different styles of swings. So before we start, let's have a quick look at what Bram's swing looks like. Okay, so the first and most obvious thing I think you'll notice is that we have a double knee bend going on at the bottom, and I'm going to explain a little bit what's happening to generate that double knee bend. So if you see, we have a knee bend, he straightens, and then he bends a second time with his knees. Okay, so let's see what's happening here now. At the top of the swing, we have a nice full extension. Now I know Bram's got a little bit of a shoulder problem, and that's so that makes it difficult for him to get full extension overhead. Okay, and that's why the angle between his shoulder and torso is a little bit off. Okay, so as Bram comes down, he receives the kettlebell, the hips go back at the right time. So there's no issue there. However, as soon as he starts receiving that kettlebell and the weight of the kettlebell swings him onto his heels, you'll notice there his toes have just lifted up off the ground. Okay? Now he starts to swing forwards, but what's happening is actually he's rolling forwards with those knees. So the knees roll forward, and the weight transfer, if you look at his feet, the weight transfer has gone from the heels there forward and onto the toes. Now what that does is, you'll notice with the angle of his back and hips there, what's happening there, we actually have the hips driving forwards and that back angle straightening up. Okay? Now as that back angle straightens up, what's actually happening from this point on, let me just try and stop it there. At this point on, the hips are no longer in the movement at all. So he loaded the hips at the back here by straightening a little bit. He loaded the hips, and then as he rolls those knees forwards, he unloads the hips. And when he gets to this position here now, it's all lower back. The hips don't open anymore. Do you see how that hip, the knees aren't extending? The shoulder is rocking back. The hips aren't moving. The shoulder is rocking back, and so now we have a fully lower back motion as he extends that kettlebell then overhead and stands up with the quads, not with the hips as they move backwards. Okay? So to fix that, Bram really needs to pay attention to keeping those hamstrings loaded and the weight on the heels, and thrusting forwards with those hips. If he thrusts forwards with the hips, then he'll manage to do a proper explosive movement and generate upward momentum on the barbell. Now, if we take a quick look at Claire now in the background here, you can see as she comes down to the bottom of her swing, she receives the kettlebell, and when she extends, if you look at the hip drives forwards the whole way through the motion. And that's what we're looking for in terms of Bram, rather than that movement stopping and the lower back taking over. So Bram, keep the weight on those heels and think about really exploding with the hips, driving those hips forward, thrusting forwards, and not engaging your lower back.